And welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer, and we're discussing Big Sky episode number 15. We've only got one left. Subscribe if you haven't already. That really would be great. We're trying to get to that 500. We're close. Creeping up. We're going to definitely be doing the season finale next week. Looking forward to that. A lot of other stuff on the channel. Leave a comment, leave a like. That helps push the video. And well, Spencer, Rand has made it to the big maze in the sky. I cannot believe that one of his dying lines was a reference to the whole maze thing. Like I was sitting there in awe. Like this episode let me know, in my opinion, and let me know if you agree. And audience, I would love to know if you agree. This was the episode where I said, you know what, the writers are in on the joke. They know it's horribly written, and they're just fucking around at this point because there's so many lines like that where I'm like, wait, what? But yeah, Rand is dead. And real quick before you start, Spencer, at the beginning when they're outside and Horst is approaching, and they're like, "What do we do?" The girls have it right. Cassie and Jenny are like, "Well, yeah, we're just going to shoot him," and Gil's like, "No, go, run away." The smartest thing that happens in the entire episode is when Cassie is like, it was Cassie. She pulls her gun and just shoots Rand while he's charging after her, and it worked. He ended up dying later. I was like, yeah, just fucking at this point, shoot them. What are you doing? Why do y'all keep getting captured? But yeah, in terms of specifically, I guess Rand's death and Cassie doing what needed to be done. How do you feel? Did it break your heart?
Well, I mean, yeah, Rand was my boy. Now I'll never get to see the maze. Bears and wasps and midgets with chainsaws, or like whatever else he was living his lucid dream in. But to me, it made me laugh because I'm thinking legality wise, legally speaking, if I walked into your house and was talking shit to you and like doing whatever, and you shot me, you'd be 100% in your right. Now, they have barrels of dead bodies, and I mean, there's a lot of things against them that Cassie could just be like, "Hey, I found a dead body on their land, and I was a little bit scared for my life." But on the same note, would any of that be viable in court? Like, I don't know, because she didn't have a reason to search it. And then she didn't have a warrant. She didn't have all these things, and she's not really a cop. So her getting ran down, I guess, would be one of those things where if I broke into your house and I turned around because you had a gun and I started trying to run away and you shot me in the back, then you would get in trouble. So I guess because she was running away and he was still chasing her is where she can defend herself. But I was just thinking legally, I'm like, this is stupid. Like, why would they put themselves in a situation where she has to kill him on his own land? And I mean, of all the plot holes, I guess, to be upset about.
Yeah. Well, they were in a literal toxic waste field filled with also a bunch of dead bodies. So yeah, at that point, I'm like, yeah, whatever. And we'll get to it later, but all on the same point of legality and odd things. Jerry, last I checked, hasn't. I'm assuming when you become a private detective, there's something you have to do official.
I'm sure there's some kind of license or.
And he's just like, she's like, no, I want to do this. And he's just, she pulls her gun out and is going in with him. I'm like, have you had any training to know how to handle this situation? You're with a U.S. Marshal.
Does she know how to clear rooms?
I started laughing in that scene. I was like, wait a minute, what? I don't think that's how this works, but okay.
Sure it does. She's got a gun, and she's willing to go inside. Those are the two prerequisites for a private investigator.
Cheyenne kills JR. Not JR, JW. It's JW. Yeah. John Wayne. So it was odd that there was a lot odd with both of those characters because you had the point where Horst was basically telling, JW, you're not gonna, run anything anymore, and he goes outside and he starts screaming, and then he's gonna go kill Jenny, and I'm like, okay, well fine. Um, but then Cheyenne is given the order to kill Gil. She goes to the room. It looks like she legitimately is contemplating it. She doesn't know that they're out there. The was it Rosie and Cassie? But they are. They come in, and then there's the whole weird line of dialogue where Gil's like, she wasn't gonna kill me, because at the last minute she was like, no, I'm not gonna. And they're like, yeah, but she had a gun on you.
I was pretty sure she was.
Yeah, it was a weird scene, and I bring it up because right after that, when she ends up killing JW, there's the moment where sort of Cassie says, in a way, like, "Oh, Cheyenne, you're gonna run things now." Almost, the scene felt as if the show was trying to tell me that Cheyenne was playing 3D chess and had, mass, coordinated all of these events in order to take over the ranch. And I'm like, that's not at all what happened.
Brian, that's exactly.
She had nothing to do with Rand getting killed. Nothing. It was just an odd thing, and obviously, I'm assuming that's where they're going now. She'll take over the ranch, but I don't know. Yet again, sort of the fun, crazy writing. What do you think about her killing JW? It did look like she was going to kill Gil, right?
Yes, 100%. And when she went in there, it was still her. It was one of those things throughout the season. We've talked, throughout the second half of this season, we talked about how Cheyenne's character was one of the most believables. Like the way she was acting it up. Her and Mark were, to me, the highlights of the second half of this season. But you have Cheyenne, she's felt like an outcast her whole life. Her dad treats her like shit. So he finally was like, you know what? You are the one that should be in charge. You are the best person for that. You're by far the most fitting. I just need you to do this one thing. So to me, it made sense, because now she's like finally getting her father's attention. She finally is getting his approval. So her battling with the fact that she was going to kill Gil, to me, still fit. It still made sense. But then, like you said, when Cassie was like, "Oh, it is you in charge now, huh?" It to me, like, it at no point to me felt like Cheyenne was playing all of them against each other to basically come out on top.
Even though the show tries to tell us that that's what she was doing. She even has that line where she says that, literally says that. But I'm like, but you had nothing to do with the Rand situation. In other words, everything, and even the sheriff at the end, which we'll get to in a sec, she had nothing to do with that, really. It's just weird writing. It's like the show wanted her to have been the one to manipulate everyone and control everything, when that really isn't how it happened. Bad planning. I think maybe that's where they wanted it to go, and they just didn't realize that until it was too late. So they had to quickly just sort of tell us, "Oh yeah, by the way, this was the plan all along."
Yeah, for real. just so you didn't misconstrue our plan from the previous 8 episodes where we showed you that she had nothing to do with it. We want you to be for certain that she was the mastermind behind the whole thing.
We have more. This was probably the oddest thing Margaret has done in the entire show. She's done a lot of odd things. But in this one, she's seeing a dark spot on her ceiling that is consuming the house, and it's getting bigger, and it's consumed a spider. And at first they were implying, we know she does a lot of drugs. Okay, that's what is causing her to have these hallucinations. The show outright shows us that, in fact, that was fake, because Horst didn't see it, only she saw it. And then she gives the line where she's like, "Oh, I'm not on drugs anymore." So it's in her mind. And there was a brief moment, a split second, where I question, are they trying to take this in a supernatural direction, or are they just, this is just a symbolism?
Then.
If we see Blake's ghost and then the next episode walking around and he He's like, "Thank you, Jenny. You avenged
Well,
me."
this is the one thing when we talk about like piss poor writing. If I remember correctly, now I'm not 100% sure. This may have been something else, and I'm like trying to make this part make sense. But she said something about somebody being a stain on the family or something, or like you're a dark spot in this family. So I think that was like a reference to something she said like 5 episodes ago.
Yeah, maybe.
It
I don't
doesn't
know.
make it better. I'm just saying, like,
Because that was my thought. I was like, for a second, I was like, are they going in a supernatural direction? And would I like that or not? I don't know. And then I was like, well, maybe it was symbolic, even though it didn't really go anywhere. Because at the end, it appears Horst is going to be arrested. I don't know if she'll be arrested as well, or if it'll just be Horst, and it will be her and Cheyenne at the ranch. I don't know. And then going into trying to build logic, if in fact the land contains that much, toxic waste, and he says toxic, which I loved, toxic goo, um, that land you would have to send in crew. The government would send in crews. They would have to clean it. No, you wouldn't be allowed to do shit on that land. It would be taken from you.
and that could also explain, though, I'm thinking of Margaret, not just drugs, but she could have some kind of, cancer or something else because of the whatever it is, whether it's radiation or the toxic stuff affecting her groundwater or something. Like, I mean, there's a lot of ways that they could explain her being bonkers, but I don't know that her had delusions or anything other than them just being like explaining something away. Once again, that seemed like they wrote something, but it didn't quite make the cutting room floor, and we don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Soon, Sam and Dean's going to come in, fight the toxic Avenger.
Spinoff, girl spinoff.
So the sheriff. Okay, this was another bizarre scene. So we get Cassie and Jenny are at the gate. Sheriff shows up with a character who I don't even recall his name. The other deputy, whatever. And out of nowhere, he's just like, "I'm on y'all's side, and this is the truth." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" Okay. The sheriff pulls a gun on his own deputy. Okay. At this point, yes, it would cause a mess, but if Jenny and Cassie drew weapons and shot the sheriff, as long as that deputy was willing to go on record and say what happened, they could probably get away with it because, she already shot the other dude. I forget his name now. Legowski. But anyways, that was a bizarre scene that he drew his weapon. And then he completely confesses to everything while Jenny's recording it on her phone, and then he just drives by. He does. At this point, he's willing to pull a weapon. Why didn't he stop his car, get out, attack her, take the phone? You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think the logic of the character and what he's doing. And I'm like, what are you doing?
No, see, there's a problem.
I agree. That is the problem.
Connect logical dots to this manic puzzle that has no logical deduction at all. Because, yeah, like you said, if she recorded that and he shows her and he was just smiling, like he didn't even look worried. He was just like, huh. Like if he would have at least been paranoid and then like they took off or anything, for them to stand there with that evidence and for him to not react or do anything is very, I don't know, one more notch in the bullshit belt, I guess.
The governor's going to show up.
Maybe that's what he was afraid of.
Maybe
they're friends with Mark, and Mark's friends with Governor. I don't know.
I don't know either. So yeah, that was
Ed Nugent.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. All the events that occurred on the ranch. So that story, there's only one episode left. It seemed pretty resolved to me. I don't think there's a whole lot left with it unless they actually show the repercussions and Horace being locked up, and maybe the sheriff going down. I guess they're gonna do that. I don't know. I don't know if it's if it's a double episode or if it's just standard, 40, 45 minute episode or not. But the
Christ.
story's pretty wrapped up to me.
Could you
as far as
imagine for 2 hours?
that.
God.
The So let's move on to the other story. Our good old boy Ronald. So he was actually going to kill Sophie. He was thinking about bashing her with the rock because she stumbled on the body, and he told her a whole story about it, how it was a deer. For a second, I was like, is he going to do it? And then he didn't. And they ended up taking her to, lucky for them, Scarlett has a friend that lives in the middle of nowhere named Peg. And she's just like, oh, we'll drop Sophie off at Peg's place. Okay, cool. How convenient to the plot.
We talked about that last time. All these shows that have these children in them, and then they basically become crutches and like problems, like they don't know what to do with them. And this seemed to be their very quick and ridiculous way of just getting rid of the child real quick. They're just like, oh, all right, well, she's gone.
Then we find out, which I was legitimately, this was actually sort of cool. I'm gonna praise the show right here. So we get the revelation about Scarlett having killed Steve, which we assume, we weren't clearly sure if it was her and her sister or if her sister had done it. We know Steve ended up dead. We know Steve was the father of Sophie. That we knew, but we did not know the specifics of his death. Well, we in fact find out, no, Scarlett actually did kill him. Mary was hiding the body and sort of holding it over her to some degree. I thought that was, decent. Okay, so she doesn't like her sister. She's willing to kill, but I actually thought this was cool. She knows that Arthur is in fact Ronald, and she knows everything about what he did. She knew the whole time who he was, and that's what she liked. And and you think back to some of the scenes where, she's messing with him or trying to get him to open up, and the stuff in the bedroom, and you realize she's a psychopath and she's looking for a companion. I would love to know how they met and the details behind that, how that all worked out. Of course, I'm sure the writers didn't even want to dare try, so they just you didn't. But I thought this was clever writing. I thought it had good callbacks to the past. I thought it actually, when you look at the story arc, it seemed planned. This is one of the few times where I'm like, oh, they actually had a plan and an idea as far as where these characters were going to end up. Do you agree? You disagree? What do you feel about Scarlett's revelation?
Well, I think that, like you said, that once they realized they're getting picked up for more, Ronald's storyline was already established. So at the end of last season, it was easy to carry them over. But how are you going to carry over Cassie and Jenny? Because the feds said they were coming in and taking over, like that case. So what, they were still going to work under the Fed? So I understood Ronald's storyline continuing because they already pretty much established it. And they did a decent job with that story in the first 9 episodes. But the Kindslosser continuation was completely made up and just basically to continue Jenny and Cassie's story going forward. They really just took them out of the whole Ronald situation. They were only communicated to Jerry and Mark about Ronald a couple times, almost like in passing, and that wasn't their main focus. They didn't even care. So Ronald's story it felt pretty well fleshed out, even as ridiculous it was, even as bad as his hairpiece wig thing was. It was still, the story itself seemed to be well put together. And her revealing, she was like, no, I know it's you, Ronald. And then him getting mad, and you've made the connection of the Joker Harley Quinn thing so many times, and it
was 100%.
Yeah, exactly what it felt like.
Natural born killers.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. That's what it was, and it was funny because I was watching it. I was sitting there like, And then when it was the moment where she looks and she says Ronald, and I'm like, oh shit. That's one of the first times this show has done something that I was like, that's clever. She knew the whole time, or at least a good chunk of it. And then, like I said, thinking back, oh, she knew, and she was happy about it. And going even further back when she was really pushing him, do you have anything you want to get off your chest? Talk about. She was looking for a companion. Now this leads to a scene where they get back to the house because she's trying to, make sure they don't find the body of Steve. She knows her sister's missing. She still doesn't know that Ronald killed her. We get the funny lines about the dolls and his going back into his fucking GI Joes. They get down there. Steve is, the freezer is gone because we know Mark and the police have it. Mark is there. Jerry shows up. This was the scene we were talking about earlier where he's just like, yeah, you have a gun. Let's do this. They're in the basement. Mark and Jerry are upstairs. This was the big, cliffhanger ending of the episode. Now,
Yes, because we already know that he got out of the house once.
Well, I was like, won't he just teleport out of the house like he did last time?
Yeah, exactly.
That was my first thought. I was like, however the hell he did it last time, just do that again.
We'll figure out how he did it last time now.
He'd be like, did you know I'm really good at tunneling?
I created a tunnel while I was trying to clean up earlier. I dug through this cinder block wall over here.
So this is my thoughts. There's one episode left. They're outside. The question is, are they going to get to Ronald? Is Jerry going to shoot Ronald? At this point, I was thinking about it, and I was like, you spent too much. I think I said this in a couple of reviews back. You spent so much time building up Ronald's story, and especially in this episode. Now you have the whole Scarlett Ronald thing. If you just kill him off in this episode, in the next episode, that would be such a waste. Now maybe you kill him off. Scarlett's now. Here's a possibility: you kill Ronald. Scarlett's not killed. Scarlett goes on about how her sister murdered Steve, and in other words, she gets away with everything. And then you follow her as a killer next season. I mean, maybe there's maybe they've set something like that up to have another villain, but I don't know, man. I'd be a little bummed if they killed Ronald at this point.
Well, to me, that would be great. I think that they could make it believable, but on the same note, we've talked about why they've brought Mark in. Mark is that human trafficking tie-in, or it would make sense for that to be the tie-in. We don't know for sure whether they're actually going to do that.
That's true, and Ronald has that information.
Yeah. So, but Scarlett doesn't. I mean, she knows who he is. She knows that he's wanted, but he never opened up to her. So he didn't tell her, hey, I have this journal over here. So it's not like she's going to suddenly be, well, she could be. I shouldn't say that. She shouldn't be in possession of all those books that he got from Rick's house. Like, it shouldn't be where she suddenly has all that information. And now Mark wants her because of information regarding Ronald. So I think if they kill Ronald off on this episode and Mark doesn't find all that, the diary and trafficking information, then that storyline's dead. Because to me, there is no breadcrumb for them to pick that up from. Doesn't mean that they won't do it or can't, fudge something or bring back Rick's wife who's in jail now. There's still ways I guess they could bring it back, but to me, there would be no tie-in back to that, and that would be unfortunate because that was a huge story that they just kind of went away when Rick died.
And that's you're right, because it seemed like the more we got into Mark's backstory, that's exactly what the idea is the fact that this whole human trafficking thing, with the now that Ronald and Rick are no longer a part of it, you would think that they're going to, they need, I'm assuming, a steady supply of women. They're going to come looking to expand or get someone else to, fill in the void. So, Mark wants to take all that down. His sister was taken and, all that stuff. So, yeah, I agree. It would be odd to completely drop that storyline and just abandon it. But they've abandoned quite a few storylines over the course of the show. Although that one seems like a pretty significant one.
Yeah, it was literally what the first 9 episodes was about. And then you kept the person alive to keep that story alive, is what it felt like. But his story feels completely different now.
Well, yeah, completely different. Because another reason I don't want the character to be taken out, even though he might be, it's the line when they're in the truck. He's trying to, choke her because he does these horrible things, but he's still in the mindset that he's not a, bad person. When she, gets on top of him and she's like, no, let's embrace what we are. And he's just like, yeah, it's that moment where they're going to become, the assumption, like I mentioned, natural born killers. Like, yeah, we're psychopaths, we're serial killers. That's what we do. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. If they get away and they're just, causing a trail of carnage, and Mark's trying to hunt them down, and that would be interesting. But a piece of me thinks Ronald's going to get killed.
Yeah, I think the whole natural born killer angle is a great way to continue their stories, but once again, to me, it changes, it morphs Ronald's character, because Ronald was really caught up. He was confused about his own sexuality because uh, Jerry wasn't the first one of that kind of victim that he picked up, and he was really into Jerry, so he was still confused, and now he's starting to find himself. But
Still into Jerry.
yeah, he followed her and was stalking her, so you still have that I don't know, like the creepy super love for Jerry obsession, but now you're throwing that kind of story arc away for this him embracing his full ridiculous psychopath self, which clearly he showed signs of it when he was trying to hurt his mom. He finally went over the edge and killed her, and he was stealing little kids and like
Murdered a priest.
Yeah, he's still always been on the edge, but him embracing that, it makes sense. But to me, once again, you're dropping the storyline. Now it would be easy for them to pick it back up. He gets caught, and then Mark brings it up, and he's like, "Oh, that's what you want me for?" Like, you could still do it if you keep him alive, but it just, to me, you're getting to the point where the character is morphed so much, that part of the story seems almost like it's a foregone conclusion, and that's unfortunate.
I'm just trying to help this actor out, and he needs, it's good, consistent work. It's
I
like
just
to
wanted
show
to be old and a bunch of other things.
um, yeah, he's one of those. If you check his IMDb, he pretty consistently works. He does a lot of the network shows and bit roles here and there, and I think he's had a few big parts and some things, stuff I've never really watched. But yeah, they took out my boy Rick. You can take out Ronald too. Um, Although I agree with you, I have completely changed my tune on Mark. I quite enjoy Mark now. And I sort of like the dynamic of Mark and Jerry. I need a scene where Jerry's training.
Yeah.
That's all I ask. Is for you to like be like, yeah, she knows how to use a gun. And because he had the one scene like last week where he pulls the gun out, and it was, to me, the scene felt like it was the first time she had ever fucking seen a gun or held a gun.
Well, and
And I'm like, that's that's not something you master overnight.
but this would be a great way to do that. So, say they break in the house and they're running around, and Mark gets knocked out because he doesn't see something coming because Jerry doesn't know to look left behind him and cover him. So Mark gets knocked out, and then Ronald stands in front of her, and she freaks out and just drops the gun. And then Ronald
That would be
and Scarlett get away, and then Mark afterwards like, look, if you're going to be in this business, I need to train you. And that would be a great way to set it up. And you still can write Ronald and Scarlett, you know, getting away. And then Jerry's now got this even more personal vendetta against him on top of the one she already had. So
Ronald's gonna cut his hair and dye it green.
dude, it'd be so great.
I swear,
like He looks like late '90s fucking Billy Joel Armstrong.
I hope. God, I hope that's what happens.
Oh, me too.
He's like wearing a bunch of jewelry, like
He's
from like
like
he's yeah,
he's
he's
got
like
a metal ball necklace and like
oh
the little like leather bracelets and shit.
dude, let me write this show. ABC.
We just pitch it to him. But look, you guys have already done enough ridiculous shit. Let's just embrace it. Let's
Yes.
bring on a new writing team because me and you, holy shit, that'd be fun as hell. Get a
So
get to write whatever fucking dumb shit we want. That'd be great.
there will be a season 2. ABC has confirmed season 2 is happening. The show is a hit. It has fans. People watch it every week. You know, the ratings are decent. So yeah, it's getting a full order. I'm not completely sure if it's a full season order, but it will return on ABC television next season. I don't know when. What's that typically? Right after summer, I guess.
Yeah, it's normally September, end of September.
So, you know, we were talking about how that gives them time to actually sit down, take a breath, and write an arc. You know, and write a full story. And you know, I'm assuming regardless of what happens with Ronald dead or not, that they will definitely introduce new villains or a new main villain next season as well. So hopefully that that works out.
I don't, like I said, and we talked about this last time. If the writing gets less crazy, because the only reason I'm legit watching it right now is because of how crazy it is, and there is no way that I'm going to watch this if it turns into a decently written and the story's actually good.
Here's here's the thing that I think will keep it crazy. This is my thought. The big hook for the show, and if you go back to the very first episode, is the fact that every episode ends on a wild, unforeseeable ending. You know, the first one, Cody being shot and killed, and then every episode after that always ends in a way that's like, holy shit. And that's become sort of the gimmick of the show. And where I'm going with this is, in order to really pull that off, you typically have to throw insane shit at the screen. You know what I mean? Like the truck scene. Like, how do you top every week? And so if they're still going to continue that gimmick, like every episode ends in a way that you'll never see coming, that alone is going to make the show be a bit hokey, I think, which is good. I'm happy with that, because you know, it's like the old you know, Flash Gordon serials from back in the day. If you've ever watched any of the old black and white ones, the ending of those are always so stupid, and it's like there's no way they can get out of this. They're like they're going to die, and then they end up getting out of it in the next episode in the dumbest fucking way possible.
Like
And
MacGyver, but
yeah, and exactly. And if that is the backbone of your series, that naturally is going to come with some ridiculous writing. So,
like I said, and you know, we talked about it. That is the only reason that I'm enjoying this show, because as unpredictable as certain shows are, this one's not unpredictable because the plots are so well written that, you know, they kind of make you think it's somebody else and they're throwing you off. It's unpredictable because not only is no one really safe, the story is written so poorly that even if they say, like, Mark was a U.S. Marshal, but before that he was an FBI informant for the Mexican drug cartel, they could write that into the story or write it out of the story and not even like reference it ever again. So it's the story writing is so crazy that it's unpredictable because you never know what's going to happen. And that is one of the reasons I enjoy watching it, because it literally, you have no idea what's going to happen next. And,
yeah.
you know, like at the end of this episode, me and you talking right now, would you have guessed that Margaret saw a giant spot on the building and made us think that maybe there's supernatural shit? Would you have guessed that Ronald and Scarlett ended up back in the same house? Almost get caught. I'm like, it's Like that's what I'm saying. It's like the most ridiculous shit, but it makes it entertaining because you legitimately have no idea what's going on and what's going to happen next.
Well, I just love their plan is the cops are looking for us. Let's drive your giant truck across the street from from Mary's house. Nobody will see it. Um, I was like, he's going to drive the semi truck. It was. I mean, it was. I was like, oh my god. Yeah, it's like, what the hell? And then even Mark that talk about another dumbass thing. He's like, I'll handle it by myself. They're like, you don't need backup or anything. He's like, no, I'll just stake out the house and I'll take them down myself. Okay, RoboCop, you do that.
Yeah, it yeah, it's like you said, legitimately he's just kicking indoors and I got this. I mean, all more power to you, buddy.
Yeah. So yeah, that's episode 15 of Big Sky. One left, and then we'll have our 2 or 3 month break before the next season. Anything else you want to say regarding Big Sky?
I don't know if I did it on air or not, but one of the worst performances, not worst as in it was funny and good, kind of like Ronald or, Gabe felt like an extra in one of Michael Scott's like movies where it was Cassie when she got mad and was like yelling at her phone and like hitting her phone, and she had a couple really awful like one-liners before that. Like I need them to focus more on the people I enjoy instead of her, or I don't know, write her better or something, because that actress can't handle the poorly written shit because it's just not great. Everybody else, I feel like they're embracing it. They're embracing how bad it is, and they're just having fun. She doesn't seem to be having as much fun.
That's a good. She seems like she's trying to play it like this is like a well written drama. Where you're right, the actor that plays like Ronald, he's just like, no, I know what this is, and he's embracing it. Because there were a few moments like that where it felt like the actress. It felt like she read the script and she was like, oh god, and she was just sort of angry that she had to do certain things or say certain lines of dialogue where like the actor that plays JW, like he just embraced it. He's like, this is what it is. Rand, my god. Yeah, he's just like, yeah, this is shit writing, and he goes for it where Cassie seems still to think she's in a higher quality, like some serious HBO drama, and it's like, no, that's not what you're in.
Yeah, it's not a high budget big production. It's literally your little poorly written big network, big
network.
Yeah. It's almost like they were like, well, here's $50. Get some old props out of here and write a story that you can fit. It's almost like Doctor Who. It's like they have all these extra props just like sitting around this warehouse, and they're like, we give you a bunch of shit. I want you to write a story containing these 3 things. It's almost like an improv class.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Well, we'll be back next week for the season finale of Big Sky. Appreciate everyone listening, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.